Hello dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between, and welcome to How to Do Everything So You Don't Have to. I'm Jesse Kester, and today we'll be talking about the 5 most common ways that we get clean audio from the sound engineer when we're shooting events. Events is a broad term, and in this video, we're discussing things like concerts, speaking engagements, weddings, and the like. The 5 main techniques that we use are USB thumb drive in the board, headphone out from the board, XLR master out from the board, USB to a computer, and finally XLR out from a stage monitor. All of these techniques have benefits and limitations, and we'll get into those as we go down the list. All of these sections are timestamped in the description below, and I encourage you to only watch what you would find useful and interesting. All right. Let's get into it so that you can get back to making amazing movies. The first technique I'm going to discuss is the simplest, but it's also the most limited. It's the one where you plug a USB thumb drive directly into the soundboard and you press record. There are a lot of benefits to this technique. The first benefit is obviously the unparalleled simplicity. You plug the USB in and you press record. Also, you're going to get a clean stereo recording of the master output from the board, and that recording will be in WAV format, so you can take it home, pop it into your computer, and get to chopping. There are some strict limitations to this method though. If it were perfect, there wouldn't be 4 other sections to this video, now would there? The first limitation is that a lot of boards don't have a USB slot. That's why we never ever plan for this to be our primary method of board capture. This is a secondary or tertiary backup plan. Furthermore, the boards with a USB slot tend to be finicky and not all thumb drives work. Be sure to buy yours from a reputable reseller like Best Buy or Target, and avoid marketplaces like Amazon or eBay as there's no real quality control. Buy drives of different capacity. 8, 16, 32, and 64 gig thumb drives. We've had boards reject one capacity only to accept another for no discernible reason. Keep those drives formatted to FAT32 and never format them to any Mac standard. We actually go one step further than that and format our drives on actual Windows machines and not on Macs. We found that drives formatted on Macs, even if they're formatted for FAT32, are less likely to be recognized by the soundboard. I'm pretty sure there's a reason for what I'm saying is absolutely wrong and completely impossible, and if you know it, please leave a comment below. I only have anecdotal evidence, which is, please say it with me, not admissible in a court of law. Finally, while the recordings will be clean, you're essentially locked to the stereo master mix. I don't know of any boards that allow you to record ISO multi-track to a thumb drive, and again, corrections in the comments please. For all the limitations though, we have no trouble carrying a handful of USB thumb drives to every event we do, just in case the board can use them. It's a great backup that adds almost nothing in terms of time or financial investment. Moving on. The second technique we're going to discuss is pulling a signal from the headphone jack of the soundboard. Most Zoom recorders have a mic line level input on them, and we're actually going to demo this one using the Zoom H4n. This technique is useful because it's fairly direct and requires little rerouting from the engineer. We found it rare that engineers use the actual headphone out from their board anyway, and it's often available. That said, it will almost always be a 1/4 inch jack, and if you're running to something like a Zoom, you will need a 1/4 inch to headphone converter. One quick side note about the Zoom, you can go ahead and set the mic level to 0.5 if you know that you're going to be pulling from a headphone out jack. This is a known setting, so you can go ahead and do that. Also for headphone settings, we start at 50 because that gives us room above and below if we need to adjust. We're going to go to an overhead shot of our board, and at a glance, it might look like a bit of a mess. And that's because it is. We'll do a quick overview of the audio pipeline and then explain the process of getting the audio out of the mixing board and into the Zoom H4n. We've got a looping audio file playing on our Mac Mini, and that is running into tracks 17 and 18 on the mixing board. You'll see that as we bring the fader up, we're seeing the audio of the track represented on the on-board meter. You aren't hearing any audio though, because the master fader is all the way down. We're going to bring that up, and now you're seeing the audio of the track represented on the master out meter, but you're still not hearing any audio. Before we go any further, please take a moment to notice how we're handling audio chain. The first thing you need to know is that you must take off your headphones before making any major changes to the pipeline. You can do incredible amounts of damage to your hearing by hitting the wrong button with headphones on, and no matter how simple your setup is, you absolutely want to be in the habit of taking your headphones off before major adjustments. The other thing you'll notice is that we run the audio chain in sequence from the source. What does that mean? Following the signal from the source means that we troubleshoot starting with the computer and working through the chain moving towards the recording device. Amplification adjustments compound as you move through the chain, and signal damage is irreversible. A 3 decibel increase doubles the power of the signal, and we have 8 stages of amplification in this relatively simple chain before it gets to my ears. There's the computer playing the track fader, the master fader, the headphone volume controls on the board, the line-in fader on the Zoom, the output volume controls on the Zoom, the line-in controls on the ATEM, and finally the headphone output from the ATEM. If every stage on your chain is even 3 decibels hot, and you have 8 stages of amplification like this, you've increased the power of your signal 256 times before it gets to your ears, and that will damage your hearing if you have headphones on. That's what I mean when I say that amplification concerns compound as you move through the chain. So you start at stage 1, make sure the signal is at the right level. Move on to stage 2, check levels. Stage 3, check levels, and so on down the board. Now that we've got all the groundwork laid, let's actually put it into motion. First, we'll start playback on the computer. Second, we'll bring up the track fader to see that we are getting a signal. Looks good. Third, we'll bring up the master fader, and when we do that, the board is now outputting a signal to the XLR master outs, but not the headphone outs. Fourth, we'll start to bring up the headphone volume slowly, keeping an eye on the Zoom H4n. You'll see that we are getting a signal. At this point, all you have to do is press record and then press it again. You'll see that the time code is moving and you are getting good, crispy, clean audio. Congratulations, you've gotten through the longest section of this video. Let's move on to technique 3. The third technique we use is to connect the soundboard to a recording device using the XLR output. Don't worry, there's much less groundwork to do on this one because we've already got the board set and a signal is being outputted. This one will go much faster, I promise. Simply plug the XLR cables into the master out on your board and plug them into your recording device. Now when we switch the H4n over to XLR inputs, you'll hear the board signal playing. One thing you'll notice is that it sounds overmodulated. This is because the Zoom H4n is expecting a microphone level signal and the mixing board output is simply too strong. Congratulations, you've hit another ceiling on the H4n. There are no 20 decibel pads on the XLR inputs. For that, we need to upgrade to the H4n's older sibling, the H6. Fortunately, I've got an H6 right here, and if you jackals can just give me 30 seconds, I'll swap the H4 out for the H6 and show you how useful those pads are. We are back with the Zoom H6 fully set up. The first thing I will demonstrate with the H6 is the signal from the board's headphone out. The reason that I'm demonstrating this first is so that you can hear that the quality between the Zoom H4 and the Zoom H6 are indeed comparable. But when we switch over to the XLR inputs, you'll hear that they sound much better on the Zoom H6. That's because we're able to attenuate the signal from the XLR master out using the minus 20 decibel pads on the H6. Now that we've got a clean signal going into the H6, you're ready to record that board feed. One of the benefits of this technique is travel distance. You can run XLR cables much farther than you can run headphone cables. That travel will prove invaluable on live productions, and I encourage you to build your kit around equipment that can travel. The world of event productions is filled with variables, and the more you can react quickly, the faster you'll see your business and associated fees grow. Let's move on to the next technique. The fourth technique we're going to cover is plugging the soundboard directly into a computer and recording using software like Logic or Audacity. There are some terrific upsides to this. The first is that you have a shot at getting ISO tracks for all audio inputs and a master stereo mix from the board. This will all be built within a single project file, and you'll have complete control over all instruments when it comes time to mix and master your live recordings. There are limitations though. First, you need a fast computer with a fast internal drive. If the drive can't keep up with the audio, recording will fail. And if it fails, everything happening computer side fails completely. Another easy way to botch this is to have the board and computer operating at two different frequencies. For example, if your board is set to 4800 and your computer is expecting 44.1, you are going to have sync issues and the recording will not work. To check that your Apple brand computer is expecting the signal as the board is sending it, go to Applications, Utilities, and open Audio MIDI Setup. In here, you can click around and find the device you're connecting and confirm the settings. From there, build out your Logic project and record multi-track isolated audio files. Chef's kiss. This technique is high risk and high reward. Because of the complexities introduced when you interface the board with a computer, you run a high risk of losing everything. But you're working towards isolated multi-track audio recordings, and if you can successfully execute on that, you're in a great position to mix and master better live music than you could have ever done with a stereo master out. Because of the high ratio between risk and reward, we never go out assuming that this will be our only method of recording the board feed. If you're doing this, have at least 2 other methods running at the same time. Which brings us to technique 5. The fifth and final technique in this tutorial is one that we've been experimenting with a lot recently, and that is running an XLR cable from a monitor to a recording device. There are lots of reasons to go with this method. The first is that it doesn't bother the board operator. The signal is already mixed down and being fed into the PA, so you're not taking up any space or time in the audio booth. Also, field monitors will output at a line level, and it's easy to predict for this on your recording device. If you're set to line level and the signal isn't clipping in the PA, it shouldn't be clipping on your device either. There are some limitations though. The monitor mix will be a mono feed, and this can be very limiting in post. Also, it's the sound coming through the PA, so it will be mixed to accommodate the live instruments. What I mean by that is if a classical guitarist is performing with a drummer, the guitar will be louder in the PA mix than the drums to compensate for the fact that drums are louder in real life than the guitar. That said, this technique is simple, reliable, and allows for a lot of room to experiment. For example, there is something that we've been starting to play with, and it's very fun. What we've started doing is connecting a recorder to each monitor on stage when working with a live band. This won't give you full-blown ISO recording, but you will have more stems to work with when you get to post. For example, the lead guitarist's monitor might be just the drums and bass. If you record an XLR outfeed from his monitor, you'll have a track to work with that's only drums and bass. The backup singers might only have the lead singer and keyboard in their monitor. If you pull XLR from that one, you'll have lead vocals and keyboard on one track. Like I said, this is not a full-blown ISO recording, but it could come in handy, and the cost in terms of time and equipment is incredibly low, so, why not? I hope this video was helpful in getting you started with pulling audio from boards at events. This was really just a long way of saying that when you go to record an event, you should be ready for any audio situation. Bring extra cables and adapters, and above all, stay flexible. Creativity goes a long way, and being able to cobble together a new audio rig can be as financially rewarding as it is creatively. If you found this video useful, please keep in touch with us. The best way to do that is to jump into the comments. The nice thing about comments is that you can tell us the marks that we've missed, as it will only help improve our workflow. If you disagree, please do so publicly. If you want to learn more about who we are and what we do, you can go to thiuphoto.com, or you could just go ahead and get back to making fantastic movies.